So, hello and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Claire Snowden-Darling. I'm the head of the College of Functional Wellness and the founder of Functional Kinesiology, and welcome to this taster session. I am here with our teachers of Functional Kinesiology. This is Lisa, this is Tracy, and this is Crystal, and they'll be working with you later when we get to the workshopping part of the programme. I love talking about kinesiology. Kinesiology has absolutely changed my life. I found kinesiology, it found me actually. I'd gone through a horrendous birth trauma in 2004, I'd been really poorly, and whilst I was trying to get myself better, I just put out to the universe, like I knew I needed to do like diet and exercise, that needed to be part of it. I just knew that was a thing. So I'd started getting a bit more interested in nutrition and had started doing some courses. And I actually was quite involved in bringing, they're called naked bars now, but they used to be called Lara bars, over to the UK. And I was at a vitality show and I was chopping up these Lara bars on a marketing stand, and somebody said to me, they're doing kinesiology tasters upstairs, and every single hair on my body stood up on end. And I walked upstairs and the woman said, do you want a taster? And I said, no, I want to sign up to the course. And I had no idea what I was signing up to. And I remember saying, sort of going home going, I just signed up to a course. I don't even know what it is. And I thought I was bonkers. And I remember sitting there on day one of the first weekend and literally having this overwhelming feeling that this is what I was put on the earth to do. And so I did my training and I opened a clinic, and at the time I had a full-time job, and I remember going into my full-time job, and this is not what we would recommend any of our students do, but I basically said, I didn't take maternity leave, I just went, you owe me a year, and if I don't make it, I will be back. And that was 17 years ago, and so far I've not had to go back to my office job. But it has been the most incredible journey. And I think the part of it that touches me the most is having now trained, I then went on to train in 16 different disciplines and different modalities, because what we tend to find when we're interested in health is we now want to learn this and we want to learn this. And I threw myself down that pathway. But for me, kinesiology just became this, almost like a filter through which I saw the world. So even when I was learning these new modalities, it was, oh yeah, but I can't muscle test, and I get to do that in kinesiology. So why, like my intuition is telling me this, and I can absolutely go there, and then I can double check it. So we get to play around with the intuition, the energetic, we get to play around with every aspect as a kinesiologist. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more. What I love about that so much is it's not necessarily a sense check for our intuition even. It's because our clients then, the people who are having this treatment, this therapy, they get to see what their bodies are telling them. It's not even about me and my intuition. They get to see what's going on for them. And that's the most empowering thing that I think kinesiology brings. It's not something being done to somebody, which would be a massage or a Reiki. It's their body is telling me what it is that it wants. And my job is just to be able to get out of the way of myself enough to listen. And then when we find out, and people go, oh my gosh, yes, that. Oh yes, that. I get it. All of a sudden, they're not in a battle with their body and these symptoms that they're having. Now it's just a case of I need to learn how to listen harder. And that's truly beautiful, because people start to see their conditions as a gift and a learning tool, as opposed to something, again, that's happening to them. So let's start at the beginning. What is kinesiology? Well, kinesiology is essentially a form of communication. It's a language, and it was discovered by a doctor in the 1960s called Dr. Goodhart, who was a chiropractor, and you have to be a doctor of chiropractic in America. And he basically, so chiropractors have always, you go and see a chiropractor, they'll sort of check like a muscle tone, muscle response. What happened with Dr. Goodhart was he was fixing people up sending them on their merry way, and then 2 weeks later they were back in with the same issue. And he realised that he wasn't actually fixing them, he was putting a sticking plaster on it. And he started to question, and he started to realise that a lot of people with similar conditions had, so let's say they had, an issue in their shoulders, also had digestive issues. We're going to come on to why that is. But he started to write these very intense case notes. And he then started to also, with muscle response testing and with actually re-looking at scientific books, he realised that there are actually 50 muscles in the human body that have links via the nervous system into organs. So when we're doing a muscle test, we're not just doing a muscle test. We are actually having a conversation, a dialogue, electrically with the organ that it's associated with. So this is where, as kinesiologists, like a lot of people who've had kinesiology or have seen a kinesiologist say, this is like witchcraft. How did you know? Like as soon as someone comes in and says, I've got a bad knee, and you go, do you get bloating? What's that got to do with my knee? Oh, well, because your small intestine, the muscles here, the quads, and the quads come in over your kneecap. Wow, that's weird. And it's these weird sort of anomalies that sound like witchcraft. Actually, it's all in a textbook, it's not witchcraft at all. But it's illuminating for people, because all of a sudden, all of these things that they just thought were unrelated make sense. And there's like a core issue. So you get a client coming in with bad wrists, horrendous carpal tunnels, almost no functionality in their hands, but they also can't move their neck. Again, this all sounds like, oh, well, it's just arthritis. I'm like, nope, all of those muscles are to do with stomach. It's your digestion. And then you work out, okay, yeah, not, eating foods we're intolerant to, not making enough digestive enzymes. And all of these conditions start to ebb away when we treat the body with what it actually wants. So it is actually nothing short of miraculous, except it's more grounded in science. So that's what kinesiology is. It's this dialogue that we have with the body through the theory of muscle testing and the 50 muscles. And we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that. And what's great, and again we're going to show you this later, is once you've actually established the ability to muscle test, then you can start to ask lots of different things. You can start to look for, well, what supplementation would help here? What flower remedies would help? What crystal would help? You can muscle test anything, and the body will tell you what it wants, and it will tell you what it doesn't want. So we're going to do food sensitivity testing. We're going to be demonstrating all of this today, and then you're going to have a little chance to sort of experience it. But the great thing is, we have this opportunity for people to really see what's happening. They feel the responses. And so I'm just going to jump to why now. I think it's so important because we've got a lot of very sick people in the world, and the world is in a health crisis. And we've got people who don't know what to do, where to go. The doctors often don't know what to do. They're absolutely trapped by the protocols, and there's a lot of knowledge that they don't have. So functional medicine has become really now the cornerstone. And so a tool like kinesiology is absolutely invaluable in helping people get out of a health crisis, alongside the doctors, depending on how unwell they are. And we need practitioners in the world. We need an army of practitioners because there are too many unwell people who are scared and lost. So what is functional kinesiology? So once you've learnt to muscle test, that's foundation kinesiology. And once you've learnt to muscle test, you can then go off on a variety of different paths. There's different kinesiologies. Functional kinesiology that I had a download about, having trained in different type of kinesiology, where the basics are all the same in all the kinesiologies. The foundation is always the same. You get the muscles, you learn how to food sensitivity test, you do the basics. But then, like I said, we can go off. And I learned, so did Tracy, we learned a kinesiology, which was a little bit like, I guess, being a GP. We were given thousands of techniques, but there was no sense of order to them. And so a lot of people ended up very overwhelmed. We could deal with general issues. But my experience of being in clinic was that people aren't coming in with general issues anymore. That was relevant in 1986 when that kinesiology was developed, but it's not relevant now because more often than not, people are coming in with horrendous digestive issues. They're being turned away from the doctor. Autoimmune diseases that they're struggling to manage, even with terrible, huge amounts of medication. They're dealing with, they're on so many medications, anxiety that is going through the roof. They've got poor diets. Our bodies now are not the bodies that they were 20 years ago. We've got hormone issues. Like every other person now has got PCOS or endometriosis. Young girls dealing with horrendous hormone fallout. Menopause has reached this place, it's what we were doing this morning, but it's reached this place of being unmanageable and life-affecting. So we're not dealing with general issues. People are coming into clinics really like this is my last resort. And I felt that kinesiology has the tool to be so powerful to support the chronic health conditions that we're seeing in the world today. So functional kinesiology uses such a powerful combination, the tried and tested kinesiology techniques with the cutting edge research in functional nutrition and functional medicine, and it puts them together. And so we created a very specific pathway to work with diet, lifestyle, to get people back to full health. So we work with, after foundation level in practitioner, we work with what we call the 6 pillars: blood sugars, stress hormones, the sex hormones to deal with all those hormonal issues, digestion, immune, and emotions, because emotions come into all of it. So we train our practitioners on these 6 pillars in a very targeted way, so that whatever comes into their clinic, they are able to absolutely help. So even if that person has come in, terminal cancer, not long to live, there's nothing that you can really do physically apart from, supporting the body through this process. But emotionally, I've got the tools. I'm here. I can help. And if someone's coming in with, big autoimmune issues, okay, let's talk about management. Alongside the medication you're on, let's talk about management. Or I'm going through an awful menopause. Okay, great, I've got loads for you. And it doesn't matter what comes in, we've got the tools. And we also teach very much what our remit is and at which point we refer on. Because I think in my experience in complementary health there's almost it's very much a them and us. And there's a fear of actually going, well, I've reached the limit of what I can offer you. But actually, I think it's a really positive thing to say, we work, for example, with small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and we've got connections with gastroenterologists who acknowledge SIBO for a start, and also know that there are some foundations that need to be in place. And for some people, you're not going to shift it without the antibiotics. And so as practitioners, we could sit there and say, well, we just don't believe in antibiotics. I think it's a really naive thing when you're dealing with something like SIBO. You have to get but you do all the foundations first, that's going to clear 90% of SIBO. And for some people, they need those targeted antibiotics. We can't help with that, but we've made the connections with the gastroenterologist who will take referrals from a functional kinesiologist. So we're able to support clients all the way through this process and actually say, now you're ready for the antibiotics, and that's great because we can carry on working after, through that process and make sure that they do their job. So it's a very connected, it's a proper integrative approach to healthcare. And we learn a lot about a lot of things, but what the feedback that we got from our students who first went through it, these three wonderful teachers were some of them, was that I felt like I was learning loads, but actually the work I did, it wasn't about filling an hour's session with kinesiology for the sake of it. My work became so targeted, so it was almost like the more I learned, the less I had to do. Because I knew the pathway. So as practitioners, we wanted to make sure that people feel incredibly supported and held, and there's a protocol that you can still be creative with, but that it's all leading somewhere. You can see the pathway. It's not just a case of, well, I'll try this today. So that's functional kinesiology. We're not going to really be talking about the hormones today because that's more the practitioner level. We're going to be talking about the basics of what you learn in a foundation kinesiology course. So, I think I've covered why now, the world really needs it, but foundation kinesiology is, like I said, it's not the hormones and all of those stuff, it's this very exciting learning of the language. So I'm going to learn about the 50 muscles, I'm going to learn about, we go into Chinese 5-element theory, we're going to work with meridians, we're going to work with all sorts of lovely techniques and tools. And what's so great about kinesiology is it fits in with any modality. If you're a PT and you can't get someone, someone's just really struggling to do calf raises, you'll be able to go, oh yeah, that's your adrenals, great. Actually, let's book, 10 minutes of your session, let's do some testing, let's find the right nutrition, bam, away. Or in the case of foundation kinesiology, you don't want nutrition, but okay, we'll switch that muscle on before I train you. Let's get that muscle switched on. So it's just, like their training goes through the roof when you can actually understand why a muscle's not working. If you're a nutritionist, being able to actually muscle test and not have to use guesswork. Pilates instructors, the same, yoga, Pilates, PT, all of those physical activities, again, getting people's muscles switched on before they do the activity. Massage therapists, actually the kinesiology, when you're doing the massage, it's really painful in one place, you're going, oh, okay, why? There's a muscle that's not switching on. Great, I can switch that on. I know how to do this. Any of the energy therapies, any of them, you're actually able to not just work on the energy, but work on all these other aspects of the body. So it fits with any other modality. This is why I said I always came back to this place of kinesiology just became an umbrella to hold all of the other therapies in it. So that's why I love it so much, because it doesn't have to be, oh, well, I do a bit of Reiki and I do kinesiology. It's like, it can all just go into one big melting pot. And then this client is getting this powerful integrated session of all that you bring from all of your knowledge. That's how kinesiology grew. So, we do that because one of the fundamentals of kinesiology is what we call the whole health approach. And the whole health approach we call the B's. And that stands for biochemical. So what we would look at as a kinesiologist in the biochemical realm. So let's just backtrack. All of our symptoms and conditions can come from one of or all of 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these realms. Let's go through them first. So, if you've got symptoms, or you just want to be, fully healthy, we need all of these realms to be working properly. So, our realms are the biochemical, the electrical, the emotional, and the structural. So, our biochemical, at basic level, what am I eating? So this would be food. And what am I exposed to? So biochemically, what is going into my body that it doesn't want? What should be going into my body that it wants? So this would be supplements. And then what can't I control in the environment? So we address all of that in the biochemical. And we do corrections through the biochemical realm. Then we've got the electrical realm. So, basic level, our body works by electricity. So our brains work by electricity, our muscles fire by electricity. So the electrical realm is very much how the body works. So we're going to be using tools and techniques that help stimulate the electrical. So in the electrical, it could be things like acupuncture meridians. So we don't use needles, but we use acupuncture points and the meridians. We make sure people are hydrated, because that's how our brains work. So we do tests for hydration. What else do we do electrically? Oh, we do a load of learning, things like educational kinesiology, making sure the brain is integrated and working electrically. So brain gym came from kinesiology. We learned that on foundation course.
Meridians.
Meridians, yeah. Educational kinesiology. Neurovascular. So yeah, we're going to come on to neurovascular points. So there are points that we hold, which stimulate blood to go to the muscles to get them switched on. There are neurovasculars. They're an electrical point. We're going to demonstrate all of this. We've got emotional. So things we can have symptoms that stem from the emotional realm, and also our symptoms can cause emotions. So we have all of that going on. So we have loads of emotional techniques. We teach one of the most, in the old college where I trained, they always said that the cost of the foundation course was worth it for a technique called emotional stress release alone, because that is huge. We still use it every session. Every session, emotional stress release, because everyone's emotional and stressed. So we use a load of techniques. Because everyone is emotionally stressed because of the pandemic, financial pressure, social pressure, relationship pressure, social media. Anybody who kind of thinks that they don't have any issues in their emotions usually have the biggest issues in their emotions, which as kinesiologists we can help them to start to peel that onion. What other techniques do we do in foundation for emotions?
Using these other past, future.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so we do all sorts of like past trauma work. Fantastic, huge emotional stuff. And then we come on to structural, which actually is a huge topic in kinesiology. But we are looking at posture, we're looking at muscle correction, so switching those muscles on. We're working on, not only do we work on these things called neurovasculars, we work on lymphatic points for muscles to switch them on. So we learn the neurolymphatics and how to rub them. Neurolymphatics, which I always thought was quite barbaric. It can be quite painful, but you know, you're doing something really good. And some very specific muscle corrections. So there's all this stuff, these tools that we have. When someone comes in and goes, oh, I'm getting some headaches, we're going, firstly, I wonder which realm. Could that be, food intolerance? Could that be, sensitivities? Could that be, what's going on? Oh, that didn't spell at all. What's going on? Our brains start going, what's going on? And then we start to tune in and listen to the body by actually doing the muscle testing. So we work with all of these lovely things, which we learn on the foundation course. So the bit of kinesiology that I've always found absolute magic is that there are, in Chinese 5-element theory, there are 14 meridians. Go, teachers, go.
Stomach.
So central and governing first. Order.
Yeah,
Spleen.
yeah,
Heart.
yeah.
Small intestines. Bladder. Kidney.
Large intestine. Lung.
Sex.
Triple warmer.
You just threw her off the plan.
You're just throwing me off my plan
Yeah, she
now.
totally did. She just totally touched on
Where
the
did you get to?
Small intestine.
Bladder.
Bladder.
Big kidney.
liver.
Kidney.
You did it too now.
Test.
Liver, then it's sex, right?
Yeah, sex, triple warmer.
You put gallbladder as well.
Gallbladder.
Liver.
She should have got one to write it.
Lung. Large intestine.
Oh, I put my gallbladder in the wrong place.
Gallbladder after liver.
Yeah. I should have written this up at lunchtime, shouldn't I? Gallbladder, triple warmer. Where have I got to? Lung, large
This
intestine.
is
Right.
why Laura doesn't let you do
It's fine, because you can't be
Do
in
you
my
want us to
mind.
write it on this one?
Right, so we have in Chinese 5-element theory, we have, or acupuncture, we have 14 meridians. We actually have a couple of, we have central and governing too. And you can see these actually linked to organs. And we had to, they're in an order, there's like a wheel, they go around in an order. We didn't actually need them in the order, but they're in the order now. And what happens is, you can see that these link to organs. So circulation, sex is actually ovaries, testes, any of those things. Triple warmer is our endocrine system, our adrenal glands, our thyroid, our thymus. And so what's really amazing is we have got muscles that are within these. So, for example, stomach muscles, like I said, we actually have some in the hands. So carpal tunnel syndrome, do we need all the surgery? No, it's food intolerance and not digesting properly, and it's this problem with the stomach. So stomach, we've got loads of muscle. We've got things like some of the neck muscles. We've got some of these wrist muscles. We've got some shoulder muscles. A really big one's this one. So again, when people have got constant shoulder pain, we're thinking digestion, shoulder, frozen shoulders. Got some shoulder muscles. Spleen's an interesting one. Spleen, pancreas. The Chinese in 5,000 years ago didn't know about the pancreas, so we tend to put the spleen and the pancreas together. So this is blood sugars, so blood cleaning, blood sugars. And so the latissimus dorsi, huge muscle, is to do with the spleen and pancreas. And people who eat a lot of sugar, actually their hands, you often see, it's that kind of classic, you see the knuckle dragging. It's this posture. It's because their latissimus dorsi is not working properly. So we're starting to get clues in the body. So we're thinking, okay, so we've got these big ones at the side of the body. I'm not going to put the muscle names. Side of the body. And again, more in the wrist. We also have wrist and arms. So people getting pains. We start to go, I know.
Bingo.
Bingo wings, triceps. Our heart muscle, heart subscapularis, is linked to the heart. So again, we start to be able to see when people have got these issues, and then you find out that they've got the medical conditions as well. We start going, this starts to make a lot of sense. Small intestine, loads to do with the abs, loads to do with the quads, and of course, where are the most exercised place? Everyone wants to, work off those Beyonce thighs and get rid of their guts. So we're starting to look at abs, quads, loads going on in there. Bladder, loads to do with the bladder, all in the ankles, loads, but also the big erector spinae. This muscle, sacrospinalis, that actually holds us up. So people with bad posture who are struggling, we're starting to think bladder. Wow, okay. Kidney. big kidney one is the psoas muscle, so the kicking muscle. And again, if people are sort of like, if they're struggling, if they've got sort of pigeon toe, children born with club feet, you're thinking about sort of maybe psoas issues. Or I've got a friend who has got kidney problems, and I knew it before he even said it, because he literally sort of walks a little bit like the Charlie Chaplin walk. And then the conversation, I found out that he had this psoas leg muscles. And Pilates instructors, physios, osteopaths love talking about the psoas muscle. They do a lot of work on the psoas, but what they're often not doing is having the conversation about why is the psoas muscle an imbalance. And so with the Bs, we're going, what's going on biochemically, what's going on emotionally, what's going on electrically, what's going on structurally, because that structural correction is only part of it. A psoas muscle will be very, very short and tight if people aren't hydrated. So you get a lot of people with this, that kind of ridge, that back pain, and that's because of this psoas muscle just not doing its job properly. And so when we drink water and this equals out, we stop getting the back pain. So you can start to see all these, I mean, I can't even say they're small niggly symptoms. For some people they're life affecting, but even with the foundation kinesiology course, you are making huge differences to people's health. There are people who have had back fusion actually don't drink any water. And no one's asked the question, you know, is it anything to do with hydration? And I never understand that, because you ask that, you know, the vets ask that about your pets. Liver, shoulders, rhomboids, again, you know, just a lot of people coming in going, I've got these pains here, and you start finding out, you know, you drink a lot, there's a lot of stress, a lot of hormone issues. Gallbladder, lots of tight shoulder, top of shoulder pains. And back of knee, that's a big one with gallbladder, so a lot of knee replacements. A lot of knee pain comes on when people have got stressed gallbladders. And a lot of gallbladder removals are actually, it's because people have had a compounded wheat intolerance. So you start to sort out people eating wheat, you stop people needing gallbladder removals. Circulation, sex, the hormones, this is a good one, isn't it? This is a good one. Our hips, so many of the muscles in our hips, and we were talking about in our menopause workshop earlier, so many hip replacements for women after they go through menopause or as they're going through menopause. And actually we've got the gluteus medius, the gluteus maximus, the piriformis, the adductors, all linked to our hormones. So, and you know, women with hormone issues tend to stand like this. So we want to get those corrected. And it's one of those chicken and egg situations, you know, like I went to an early menopause, but I've also had a hip issue my whole life. And so I don't know which came first. Did the hip issue mean that I was going to have hormone issues, or did it exacerbate it? But for me, I mean, I got diagnosed with, I needed a hip surgery, not hip replacement, I needed hip surgery. I found out about that at the exact same time I found out that I was going through an early menopause. I get hip pain now before I get a bleed. I'm kind of like, why is my hip agony? And then a few days later I go, that's why my hip was agony. So it's fascinating when, again, this thing of when you can start to realise why your body is doing things, we stop just reaching for the painkillers, just panicking, calling the doctor. We can take things into our own hands. Lots in our hips and thighs. Triple warmer, so our endocrine, oh gosh. Huge ones these here in the upper thighs. And one of the big muscles, the sartorius, which is connected to our adrenal glands, and our adrenal glands make our stress hormone cortisol. When we're stressed, there's two actually, the sartorius and the gracilis. Classic example of this is, you know, you've had really, really bad news and you feel like your legs give way. It's literally because in that moment your muscles switch off. those stress muscles, it's like they just switch off. And so when we're under like regular stress, these muscles shorten and tighten. Our pelvis actually rotates, and what happens is, so firstly then we get bad hips, wonky hips, but there are valves in our gut that get either stretched open or stuck shut, and that's where we get IBS from. So we start to, just from this foundation knowledge, we start to be able to make huge changes to people's health. So triple warmer, we've got leg, we've got calf, what else we got? Thyroid, we've also got upper chest.
Neck.
Yeah. Because anything to do with the triple warmer and the hormone system, you know, our whole body is so important. Lung, very upper shoulder, so you often find that people with things like, chest and diaphragm, we often find that people with things like asthma really struggle with any kind of movement up here. So they're seeing physios for not being able to move their arms very much, but actually it's because of the issue in their lungs. Yeah, and compacted diaphragms. God, my writing's gone awful. And then large intestine, oh, they're biggies, aren't they? Yeah, horrible ones down the side of our legs. And any physio or chiropractor or osteopath or masseuse will tell you that everyone moans about having their tensor fascia lata, right, this one. And in our world, that's large intestine. And that's because everyone moans about it, because most people have, let's say, suboptimal bowel movements. So much constipation and diarrhea, and with the fascia lata, we're able to have a look at that.
It's that big painful lateral knee.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's
Yeah. Yes, that pain, yeah, exactly, that's knee pain down here. And also back pain, so much back pain. Large intestine muscle here, quadratus lumborum, and again, so many people, you know, they feel like they're wonky. Actually, we need to work on the large intestine. You find that again, not drinking enough water, large intestine, they're not having enough fibre, they're not eating right. That you just start to make all these connections. So it's what's so great is someone will come in with a problem, and they'll go, oh yeah, no, I've got this horrendous pain. And you go, show me where your horrendous pain is. You go, oh, it's here. And you go, okay, what else can't you do? And they're like, oh, well, I can never do, you know, sit-ups at the gym or da-da-da-da-da. And you go, oh, yeah, I know exactly what that is because it's in the textbook. Look, it's in the textbook. They go, oh, or you'd be rubbing a point. And I go, oh, how did you find that point? I go, it's in the textbook. It's like, it's so incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
That's the key, is it's so incredibly accurate. When people come in and they go, literally like, oh my gosh, and you're rubbing the point, they go, I didn't even know it hurt there, but that's agony. And you move like an inch that way and they go, no, it doesn't hurt. And you go, no, I know, because that's not the point that it says to rub. It's like, this is what your body is desperately looking for. So, Tracy is going to talk you through a little bit about the 50 muscles and posture, because we've talked a little bit about where those muscles are, where she's going to talk to you about what can happen when those muscles are out of balance.
I've pretty much covered it as you go
through
all of the meridians. So when she was talking about when they're like kind of like this and what kind of muscle organ connection there is, but what we need to consider when we think about posture is actually it's the mirror to our health. So when people are sitting uncomfortable, they walk in to see us and they're walking in like this and thinking, I'm already thinking, they've probably got stomach issues, or they've got frozen shoulder, they aren't able to lift their arm properly. Again, it's that neuropathway connection, like Claire touched on earlier. You know, we have what we call the intervertebral foraminals, the holes in the spines that have got the nerve bundles, which is that muscle organ connection that makes us feel like people come in and think we're a bit witchy, don't they? Because we know exactly where it's coming from, or you know, they're not even telling us necessarily about their diet, they've just come in like that and they're going, you know, or have you been eating a lot of sugar lately? Might have been, you know, when Claire was talking about when the arms are like this, latissimus dorsi is a very surface muscle, Yeah, so it's so it's close to the surface of the skin, and it's, when people in the gym, they can't even do this, they can't even pull down, and they're struggling. You look at bodybuilders and they can't move properly, they're taking loads of whey protein and all of those different types of supplements to try and build and bulk up the muscle, but actually it's not making them strong, it's actually doing totally the opposite for those muscles. And these muscles, when they're kind of that weak, can lead on to what we were talking about earlier with insulin resistance and diabetes. These are muscles that kind of really give us an awareness when people come in and they're like this, or like she's talking about carpal tunnel, but we've also got, this movement is very much relating to the spleen. It's called the opus plecis longus, OPL for short, and again that has a neural pathway to our spleen, and they're like this, the fingers are like this, and it's blood sugars. So it starts making us think about what they can't do. And like Claire was saying, when coming in like this in a really tight psoas and they've got their feet out like this, and people walking, they don't even realise it. It's like when someone's bashed their toe and they ignore it. It doesn't matter, so I'll just carry on. So then the knee starts to be painful. So then they're kind of a little bit like, oh, that's fine, and then suddenly the hips go, and then it's like this, to the body saying, I need help. But actually, what we need to start with is what the muscle down, right down from the bottom first. The body wants to be fixed in a certain order as well. So again, back pain, quadriceps lamborum out here, and people are literally slumping, or they're sitting in their seat, they're sitting in the chair, and they can't actually sit upright. They're literally sitting down in their hips. So again, it's that, people on their phones, today everything's like this, isn't it? Again, it's a mirror to what we're doing in our lives. And that's what we're looking at as a kinesiologist, is how people are standing. As soon as they're walking in the room, we're being aware of what's going on for them. And by asking those open questions, then we're also making that nice rapport and connection with people to find out what's happening in their life. But I think, what Claire was talking about as she went through all of the meridians just now and really explained what's happening with posture. They're kind of really tight through here, stress going on in the life, the psoas, fears, anxieties. So it might not be structural, it might actually be that it's the emotional part that's creating this structural imbalance in people's posture walking away.
Can you also be telling us that a bit?
Please.
If she had my bit.
I'll try not to
I've given it to you.
Hello.
Give it.
So I'm a Pilates, fitness, massage, that's kind of my background before I got into kinesiology. And I also do something called the melt method, which I love, which is connected to fascia, which involves all of this in your nervous system. And what I wanted to add, particularly about posture, is our body has a natural ability to kind of shock absorb and to kind of like ease and adapt and move. The challenge then becomes, particularly if the muscles are imbalanced. So ideally, it's like our muscles will either be like on holiday, you don't have to do anything, you're just lying there on the bed, you don't have to do anything. Or it'll be like, oh my God, somebody's at the door! You want them to be able to react and then go, be there, in action, I'm working. But if there's an imbalance because of any of the B's that Claire was talking about, so the biochemical or electrical or emotional or the structural, then actually I could be like, the muscles just like, the doorbell. It's like, yeah, the doorbell, I'm doing it. The doorbell. And it's just like, oh my God. And then all your other muscles, so it's usually the neck's like, okay, I'll get you to the door, really? Or you see people kind of coming like, or people that it's like, I never rest. It's like the triple warmer, those muscles, the adrenals, it's just like, okay, let's go, I'm there. And so you'll see all these people kind of walking and moving in these different actions. And ideally, when we go to muscle testing and working with a posture, is like, our job is to go, okay, hello muscle, are you switched on? And it's like, yes, I'm listening, thank you, what would you like? Or it's just like, and then we go, okay, well, you can go to sleep now. It's like, the muscle goes to sleep. Or with the muscle testing, we find the muscles that are like, I'm here, I know the answer, it's me. Yes, and it's just like, calm down, no, I'm here. Nobody else is doing the work. And we have different techniques that we can use so that actually the kind of goody two-shoes, or think of it like your family, like mum doing all the work, nan doing all the work of mum and everybody else. And so we have that opportunity to go, let's just let mum go to the spa and then let everybody else as part of the team wake up and do the work, so that actually then if it needs to be on and operating, it can, and if it needs to be off because it's not the time, it can. That's an ideal, balanced, functional body. But how do the muscles know what they need to do if there's an imbalance anywhere in the bees? And so that's what we learn to be able to do, and learn to be able to discover how you can help yourself. I think for me that's the fascinating thing, is kind of going, I knew there was something not right, and then you're like, open the book, turn to the page, let me see. So, would you like to add anything else?
There's nothing like what I was going to say at all.
Okay, well there's room for you.
Wow, do you want to do? Please. So what I was going to, it's like musical chairs. What I was going to say was oh, camera. So simply put, my add-on was going to be that what does it even, we get our clients come in and they're like, going to tell us no, I can't do this, I can't do, I've got pain when I'm in the shops, or I've got pain when I'm carrying the kids around. So I was kind of bringing it back to that functionality of what we get when clients come in to see us is, I can't do this, or I'm experiencing this. So like Zoe said, actually, when we've got all these muscles who are going crazy or just doing nothing, and we're asking that question, what's going on? And then able to give that to our clients so that they can walk away with, oh, there's some awareness. Because we're all so great, aren't we? Going, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Oh, I've got a bit of a niggle. Oh, but actually, my hip pain's been lasting like, I don't know, maybe 6 months. That's a bit more than a niggle. So what's been going on? So once we're able to give them that self-responsibility and that self-awareness to go, oh, okay, what am I eating? What am I doing this part? What stress do I have? You start to give over, handing over that baton and not taking it for them. We're not, not going to kind of come see us every week because we can give you a massage and a rub here and there. Actually, let's look at it, explore it, turn on the ones that need to be turned on, turn on the ones that don't, be balanced and even, but then give you the skills as clients to run with that without needing to come and run to us every week. So yeah, that was what I was going to add. So you said?
Beautiful, ladies. Lovely to feel all your energy. How gorgeous. Yes, all very beautifully put. That empowerment model is like the bit for me that gives me the goosebumps. I've got a client and he always comes to see me when there's something that most people would ignore. So a little bit of reflux or a little bit of problems with breathing, it's a little bit breathy. He says, I'm sure it's nothing. And I always say to him, I love that you have got zero tolerance for not feeling great. Because most people come and see me with a list like this, where it's been years. And like for him, it's like one session and bam, just done. It's easy. And then he goes, oh yeah, okay, all right, okay, yeah, I can, yeah, no, you're right, I've started doing that again. Yeah, okay, done. But with these basics, with what you can learn on the course, which is phenomenal. The food sensitivity testing, the switching these muscles on and off, the emotional work, the supplements, we don't do supplements, even without the supplements, the acupuncture meridians, that's what I was going to say. With those things, you make huge changes to people's lives. Huge. So I had a client who'd had a horrendous anal fissure, right? I do not have a muscle like that you think for an anal fissure. That's like one where you would go, that's not one I've got a muscle for, right? Except we do. It's actually the tibials, which is to do with bladder. And I'm like, that's really interesting. How interesting. And I'm like, it's food intolerance. And he's like, it can't be. I mean, they've done surgery on this and it just keeps coming back. And I'm like, it's food intolerance. And we worked with the tibials and we found out what food was turning his tibials off. anal fissure went away. A big anal fissure that they wanted to do more surgery on, but he said it's so painful, the surgery, he didn't want it again. That's from just working with a muscle and food intolerance testing. I didn't even need any supplementation. That was taking out what he was putting in, not putting in what he, something that was needed. That's the miracle of this. When we stop doing things to our body that it doesn't want us to do, it has the capability to heal itself on such a profound level. And that's what you have at your fingertips after a foundation kinesiology course. It's literally mind-blowing. So, let's show you how it works. So we're going to talk about how to muscle test. So, Tracy, do you want to be my body? Do you want to be my body? My willingness this time? Yeah. Because it's a language, and what I want to say is, can we learn French overnight? No. Can we learn Italian overnight? No. We can't learn any language overnight. Muscle testing is incredibly simple. Anybody can learn it, and it gets better the more we practice it. So a lot of the problems, a lot of people go, I did a foundation kinesiology course and well, I just didn't get any results. I'm like, you were still learning. You were still learning. It's a language. There's a lot to think about in kinesiology. So your muscle testing will come beautifully over time. But my daughter has been muscle testing since she was 2, and she tests me if I need testing and there's no one else around. She does a beautiful job, and she's never formally been trained, Anybody can learn to muscle test, we just have to keep practicing. So it's one of those things I like to say right at the beginning, because it is a language. We need to practice it, and once you've nailed it, it will be in your neural pathways. It will then be like riding a bike. So even if you didn't do it for you, you'd come back to it and you go, okay. So it's really simple. So I'm going to test Tracy's supraspinatus, which actually, so we use the Latin names. The Latin names, I remember kind of going, oh gosh, I'm not particularly structurally excited. That's not the area of kinesiology that particularly excited me. It excites Tracy. She is a muscle nerd, and I love that so much because she helped us write the textbook so beautifully. But I'm not, the muscles never really, the names of the muscles, it was nothing that particularly sparked my imagination and got me really excited. And so I found it quite hard to learn those. But what's so great about, and particularly the way that we teach it, is everything is just done by so much repetition. So it just becomes bedded in. So we're going to work on, I'm going to show you the supraspinatus, which is actually, this muscle. These are our textbooks. They're pretty, we're so proud of them. So the supraspinatus muscle actually sits at the back of the shoulder here. It's a really little muscle, and it's linked to our brain. So in that list of the 14 meridians, it's the brain. It's really important. And it's very easily switched off by stress. Driving position will put too much pressure on the supraspinatus. So we tend to find that most people will come into a clinic with their supraspinatus being a bit off. So we always work on the supraspinatus. And so to give you an idea of the sort of things you're going to be learning is that you learn the muscle action. So what's the muscle action of the supraspinatus? So we always test almost the opposite of you're going against what the muscle would normally do because you want to put it under pressure. So we're going to test the supraspinatus. Do you want to show the supraspinatus, the action? Yeah. So we're going to test. I'm going to ask Tracy, so if the muscle action is to do this, I'm going to ask her to do the reverse. So I'm going to ask her to push away from my hand. And so what I'm doing in the muscle test is I'm applying about fair bit of pressure, maybe about 5 pounds. We don't do the 2 pounds, do we? About 5 pounds of pressure. And it's not even about that, because a lot of people bandy around those words, and I've never actually sat on a scale. It's like the clutch point of a car. What I'm doing is I'm asking Tracy to meet my pressure like the clutch point of a car. Our foot meets that clutch point. And then you can feel and you can see what happens with the muscle. So I'm going to ask Tracy to meet my pressure. Actually, I'm meeting hers. We're meeting each other's. So you're going to push out that way. I'm going to come this way. So she's pushing that way. So we're going the opposite of the muscle. So if you push out for me, and we're meeting each other's pressure, and then her arm is not able to hold it. So if you hold out again, and it's not able to hold it, okay? So that's a muscle that's switching off. That's a supraspinatus that wants correcting. So I'm going to check this side. Hold nothing. And actually, the more that I do that, that muscle will get weaker and weaker until I could literally, with a feather, push that muscle down. So this isn't about Tracy's strength. Tracy plays volleyball at a very competitive standard, and I can tell you that she is incredibly strong in her upper body. So this is not about strength. You could have a bodybuilder. This is about muscle response. It's a very different question to, when you do lifting of some type, you're using lots of muscles. We've isolated this one little muscle in the back. And so I'm like, okay, well, this needs correcting. So I'm going to show you how we would correct it using the bees. Well, first of all, I would be making sure that Tracy had a glass of water. It's definite, number one.
Sip of water.
You just had one. You can have another one.
I'm quite dehydrated, so it could make a difference.
If Tracy had constant shoulder pain, I'm going to be thinking food intolerance. Always food intolerance, brain fog, food intolerance, food intolerance, food intolerance. Thank you. So that's my first thing, for biochemical. But now I want to actually do some of the corrections to show you. So I mentioned neurolymphatics. So neurolymphatics, literally it's the lymph that feeds this muscle. And so in your textbook, it's here. We call them the bananas. And, because that's what they look like. And also the back of the head here, right at the base of that occiput. And how many people get headaches that start from here? And isn't it amazing that that muscle is for the brain? Miraculous. So I'm going to do some rubbing. And it's quite firm rubbing. And we like those faces. Shows we're doing our job properly. Kinesiology face. Not so bad at all. So I can feel that this here feels tighter. And so you say to people, it's tighter on this side. How do you know? Clearly I'm a witch.
What does it feel like underneath your fingers?
Depends on, it's not always the same, but in this case, it was just more solid. It didn't yield as much. So I'm going to go here.
Oh, that's nice.
Is that nice? Okay.
Like horribly nice.
Horribly nice, okay. So when people say it's really nice, it doesn't hurt, we're like, oh, that's boring. And now we've got the face at the exact point when I felt that tightness and this sort of unyielding. Good work, well done.
You're welcome.
And so I'm going to hold those neurovasculars we mentioned for the electrical. And the neurovasculars for this are points on the head here, called frontal eminences. I'm just going to hold them. These are really light. Just literally contact them. What these do is they send blood. So I've sent lymph to that muscle. Now I'm sending blood to this muscle. And what you'll find is often the practitioner sighs as something shifts in the body, or the person's sighs, or their tummy gurgles. These are all signs that something is shifting in their body. And because it was actually both sides that were unlocking, as we call it, it didn't lock. I'm going to rub point again, it's in the textbook. Here, a little arrow that goes up and down. On the spine, I'm sort of moving the skin over the spine, and this is called spinal reflex. Different technique, spinal reflex. And what this does is it sort of wakes where the nerves come out of the spine bundle, it wakes them up. Lovely? Yeah, it can often be quite sharp.
I spit it into my teeth, actually.
So I've done some structural, because I did the neurolymphatics. I've done some, I haven't done emotional, but we're not going to go there right now. I've done the electrical, I've done neurovasculars. She had some water for the biochemical. So the other one I need to do is her meridian, because I'm going to balance all of the bees. And her meridian in Chinese medicine starts here, the central meridian starts here, and we zip up the central meridian. And so we're just going to very lightly zip up her central meridian. Just a few times. So we get to work with these lovely Chinese acupuncture points and acupuncture meridians. So it's really exciting. So if you're really into that side of it, you can go down that rabbit hole. You can go into, as long as we do the basics, we can go deeply into any of these rabbit holes. I mean, obviously creating functional kinesiology, I went so deeply into the biochemical and the emotional, actually. Like, Tracy went very into the structural, but still with the basics. So when you go to Tracy, you don't just get a massage or don't just get kinesiology focusing on structure, you're still going to get the food sensitivity testing, you're still going to get the emotional work. But just her passion area is in that. Yeah? So now, have we done enough? So we're going to redo that muscle test. So you're going to hold out for me, and can we see that muscle? It looks different. Let's check this side, and holding out. Now this one's not quite switching on yet, but do you remember it kept getting weaker and weaker? If we've done a correction, what you'll see is it gets stronger and stronger. Weak muscle gets weaker, strong muscle gets stronger. So some people always say, well, you're just not pushing as hard. And I go, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch Tracy's muscle off so that you can see something. I was always gobsmacked that you can switch a muscle off, but we can. There are many ways that you can do it. One of the ways is to unzip her central meridian, which is why it feels horrible if someone stares you up and down, you know, literally, because they've literally unzipped your central meridian. It feels horrible. So I'm going to unzip her, and you can see she's switched off, right? Magic. So I'm going to do that again, but I want you to watch my arm as I do that. You can see there's no there is nothing there, literally nothing there. I have to do nothing. Once that muscle's engaged, you can see my muscles, I actually have to try and put some weight in. It's like a girder. So the muscles tell us everything. And so that's a muscle test and a correction. And the way that we muscle test, go into this in great depth and you get to practice it a lot, it is literally this simple. You take that muscle, you ask them to hold, you give the brain a second to log that request, and you squeeze. You find that clutch point, and then you gently release. That's the language. That's the language. Everything else is in a textbook. So yeah, supraspinatus, latissimus dorsi, it's in a textbook. It's in a textbook. So it's not like, okay, well, I've got to learn all of this stuff that's really scary to learn. Oh, thank you, Tracy. So we've mentioned, oh no, actually you can stay there. Thank you. So, I want to talk to you about what you're actually going to be covering in the syllabus. You learn all the muscles. You learn how to do the corrections. You learn those organ meridian connections, which are mind-blowing. When you look at things like tibials for the bladder and you go, anal fissures, that's insane. It's absolutely mind-blowing. You learn what food is good for that. And you also learn what food to avoid. So when people have got issues and they're coming in and I've got carpal tunnel, and you go, right, okay, well I remember that was on stomach, so let me go to stomach. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, it's here. It's not supinated, there we go. Okay, yeah, okay, so I've got this pain here. Right, yeah, so it's here, actually. You're getting a pain because this muscle's tight, right? That's stomach, okay. I don't know this because I'm only just learning it, but it says, it says that you should definitely be avoiding fizzy drinks, sugar, wheat, chewing gum. Do you eat any of those? Yeah, I eat gum every day. Okay, well maybe we could avoid the gum and see if we can get this to go. Wouldn't that be good? And it's so specific. It's so specific. Because then we can start going to something like bladder, or where am I here? Triple warmer. Oh no, let's go to bladder, because I said bladder. I haven't cut this book yet, because I can cut it, which is really handy. Let's go to bladder. Foods to avoid. Oh, foods containing oxalates and oxalic acids. That'll be your spinach, your peas. Gluten's actually across the board though, to be fair, because gluten is shocking. So you start to go, oh, this is really specific. It's not, wow, that's amazing. Do you eat a lot of spinach? Oh, I eat spinach every day, I have it in a smoothie. Ah, you're having too many oxalates. So it's all here. So it's all here. But we don't just want to be able to tell them what to avoid. Kinesiology is famous for food sensitivity testing. Now, a lot of people pay a lot of money to go and have hair tests. Not a fan of them because they come back with, say, 60 things. It's not relevant. What we've got to look at is what are people eating every day. And in an order as well. You take away like the big issues and then the body, actually the immune system can change. So I used to have an allergy to pineapple, and I used to be intolerant to loads of different foods. There's just a lot I couldn't eat, but I could eat wheat. But when I discovered I was actually intolerant to wheat, I just didn't seem to get any symptoms from wheat. Actually, all of my immune system, kind of when I gave it up, my immune system was able to sort itself out, and all of the things that I'd been intolerant to before I could now eat. Pineapple I can now eat, and it's now wheat that it reacts to. So it's like your immune system's just confused. So let's have a look at a couple of things. So we have these amazing test kits, and in our amazing test kits we have a load of food. And so we're going to do some food testing, because food testing is really interesting. I'm going to do some grains. Where are you? There. So everyone talks about being gluten-free. Gluten isn't necessarily the enemy. Wheat tends to be a problem because we hybrid the grain, the gluten content went up, we spray it with a pesticide. So a lot of people are actually okay with other grains, but they've lumped them all in together and now they're confused. Some people aren't okay with any of it because their guts are really an issue. But human beings, we should be able to tolerate most things. And if we can't, it's because unless it's something like wheat where we have broken it, then the issue is with our immune system. So what we're looking to do is to actually get our immune systems back to a place where it can tolerate these things. Yeah? So food testing is the exact opposite of what we're looking for is the opposite. I'm looking for, we're intolerant to something, so that muscle's nice and strong now, it's nice and fixed up. If we're intolerant to a food, it will switch the muscle off. And that's what we're looking for. It's really simple. So we can be specific. So if Tracy had a bad neck, we could actually test the food once we've strengthened it against that neck and see. It's just so like, wow, when someone's got a bad ankle or a bad neck, when you can actually use a little pot of food and you see it switching off that neck, when 2 seconds before it was solid as a rock. But to give you the idea, I'm going to start with some things. So we do 3 little tests. Holding out. That's lovely. Test number 2. This is just testing different things. So this is this muscle. Is there any other muscle in the body? Is the test I'm asking. I'm pressing a point on the back of her neck. And then I'm just making sure that, do you remember I was able to turn her muscle off? That's good. A muscle that's strong, a bit like what Zoyce was saying, it's strong, but it knows when to take time out. So I want to know, is this letting the muscle still take time out? Yes, it is. So Tracy is fine with gluten-free oats.
So excited.
Holding out. Ah, can you see that switch off?
Yeah.
Instantly switched off, yeah? Holding out. And Tracy doesn't know what I'm testing. That's oats.
Oh, normal oats.
Not the gluten-free oats. So let's go in with some grains. It's interesting. Holding out. Oh, and again. Now, my brain would have said that that's probably one she's fine with because it's not one that we have a lot of exposure to and a lot of people are fine, but it's barley.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's in beer as well, a lot of beers. Oh, I know, what a bummer. So barley, look, just literally switching her off.
Oh. That's really disappointing.
It is disappointing. Holding out. This one's got potential. And we're still not switching off. Can her muscle have time out? Yes, it can. So she's fine with rye. So good rye bread, rye beer.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? And then we're going to go for holding out. So you see what I mean by, that's a no. Do you get that? That's switching off.
Mm.
That's spelt, which is very close to wheat.
Mm.
And then, that's literally a no. That's a no. So that's actually wheat. Now wheat's a really interesting one, and we'll get you all to kind of play around with this because this is a non-kinesiology test, but I do like to show it. So if Tracy, you just lift your leg up and down. Okay, easy?
Yeah.
Okay, you can all have a go at this so that you know it's not staged. And now if I put the wheat, so we put it here, you might be wondering why we put it here. So it's in glass or plastic, it's inert, it's not in metal, which would block the signal. As long as it's by our salivary glands, our body doesn't know if it's our brain doesn't know if it's in the mouth or out the mouth, it doesn't care. It's just close enough to the salivary glands for it to be able to recognise it. So now if you can try and lift your leg.
I can't.
She can't lift it.
It's
that way. And then we put this on, and that is literally, it's such a drain on her body. Isn't it amazing? You'll all get a go at this in a moment.
I do not want to do that ever again.
And so when you've actually got someone who's got a bad neck, and then they just can't even hold their neck up, it's so obvious. So it's not me as a practitioner saying, I think you shouldn't eat wheat. It's like, your body could not have showed you more clearly. Isn't that fantastic? So fantastic. So in that particular test, one of three things will happen. Nothing particularly. It doesn't. It's a non-kinesiological test. It just means that they could still be intolerant to it in other places because that's just one muscle. It's just a pretty obvious one because the leg's heavy. Or it gets really, really easy to lift the leg, and that means that their body's having to produce so much adrenaline. It's actually worse than that response. Yeah. It's such a stress response just to get them to be able to lift the leg. So thank you for the food testing. So you'll be able to do food sensitivity testing. And then, once you've got done foundation, if you want to carry on, what we're able to do is we're able to take a muscle that's switching off. Let's find, what do we think would be switching off?
Fascia lata.
Fascia lata. So fascia lata is the large intestine muscle. And so this little muscle here holding out for me. No, that's switching off. We're able to kind of go, okay, fascia lata, large intestine. What does my book say about the large intestine? Okay, it needs fibre. It needs, what's that, vitamin? Omega-3, like some omega-3. Let me actually look what's in the book. So I should know. It needs, I just want to check what's actually in the book. So digestive aid, it needs probiotics, it needs fibre, possibly things like iron, magnesium. So then once you go on to something like practitioner, we can then start to get a fabulous test kit of nutritional supplementation. And we can look at, let me find my magnesiums. This is not in the order that I usually have it. So I've got a couple of magnesiums here. You could argue for, people would say, oh, magnesium glycinate is the best because it's really good for bowels. Some people say, oh, no, magnesium citrate. Some people say, oh, magnesium malate. Doesn't matter. Tracy's body's going to tell us. So I've got a couple here. And so what I'm going to do is the reverse of the food testing. I'm going to put this here, and I want to see if this strengthens this muscle. That's what we're looking for. This is going to be magic. So you hold out for me. No. And hold out for me. Look at that. Look at that.
Ooh, what's that? Oh.
Magnesium citrate. So that's a magnesium that's really absorbable in the bowel, really good for getting bowels moving. And how magic is that? And in terms of, do I have to try and sell someone a supplement? No, their body has just done it. I'm not recommending, you know, and like, great, your body has said this, and this, and this. So that's when we go on to practitioner, we add in supplements. Some kinesiology schools teach supplements in foundation. It's just, there's a lot to learn in foundation, and we believe in getting those, embedding those basics really well, learn the language, do the foods, do the food testing, and then add in supplements when you're confident with your testing. Thank you. Then you can go on, thanks Tracy, to add in things like batch flour remedies, anything that you want to work for emotionally. We do all of that on practitioner. Any questions? No. Okay. It's magic, isn't it? It is magic. Anything else that you want me to cover that's in the syllabus? I think that's probably everything. There's the muscles, there's all the points, there's Chinese 5-element theory, which we talked about a little bit, but Chinese 5-element theory is beautiful.
You didn't show the switching, how to switch them off.
Yes, I did. I switched off your
central
meridian. So what we're going to do now is we'll switch off the video, and then we're going to do a little workshop where you actually get to experience kinesiology and have it for yourself, and see that you too will have muscles that switch on and off with foods. And you'll be worked on with the lovely assistants. And so there might be a couple of people doubling up, so kind of do it as a workshop. And then we'll come back together to finish up.
I've got a question.
Lovely.
So my question is, how have clients found having a kinesiology treatment beneficial, and what has been the response of people who have like come on and talk on a workshop like this, who have then gone on to do the foundation?
That's why I love Zoisa, because she comes up with the most in-depth questions that makes my brain work.
How have they gone, oh, that's really helped me because of?
Okay, let's start with the question and break it down, because I've got menopause brain. So the first part was,
as if I came as
Yes.
a client
yes,
to have kinesiology done on me, how does it help? How can I help myself with it?
how can you help yourself with it,
Yeah.
or how do you feel the difference? I think that's what you said first of all.
How do I feel the difference, and how can I help myself?
Great question. So a lot of clients, so people say, well, when will I notice difference? And lots of people, I always say definitely between 1 and 6 sessions from at a foundation kind of level, because there's a lot of even just rubbing those points, we're making biochemical changes. Stuff has to happen in the body, and that muscle organ relationship, it takes time for those, you know, the organs to rebalance themselves when we stop putting in food. So 1 to 6 sessions is when people feel different. But what they'll start to notice is just a bit more energy, or I'm just not getting that pain, I'm sleeping better, or, you know, those things, I'm just not so grouchy. Sometimes people get off the bed and instantly they're like, something has shifted. Just something has shifted. Particularly when you're doing some of the emotional work, something like the ESR and the emotional program. Incredible changes that people have there and then on the bed. Doing emotional tissue scanning, right? And there's a technique called emotional tissue scanning. My experience of it was that I had a huge surgery and I had a scar that runs from here to here, and it used to just be bright purple, and I was the body for when I learned kinesiology. And I was the body, and it was, I really struggled even wearing bikinis because it was really obvious. And I was the body for this technique. And I went home, and it was quite vulnerable to be in front of the class. There's only a few people, but it was quite vulnerable, and I cried quite a bit, and that's kind of all I can remember. But I went home, and my ex-husband, literally I was getting ready for bed, and he went, where's your scar gone? I hadn't told him I'd done this work. He didn't know that's what I'd learned because we learned loads of stuff that day. And he went, where's your scar gone? And I looked down and it had faded by at least 50%. It was incredible. And we see that kind of magic all the time. And even down to something like educational kinesiology. We teach you the educational kinesiology weekend 1, I think, to help you be able to learn. And my daughter had some really profound learning challenges and speech issues, and she was on a scheme called Portage Plus, which is for people with learning difficulties at her nursery. And I came home and said, right, we're going to use these educational things, and literally a minute, like a little bit of marching, a little bit of rubbing some points, making sure she drank some water, doing some points that you learn. And within a week, she was able to completely be understood by her teachers where she really hadn't been. She still struggled with S's and D's, that was a struggle for her. But other than that, her vocabulary her speech completely changed. It was like magical. Behaviour changed. And she continues to she's now 18, and she still does her little checklist before she goes into exams and stuff. And she notices that her concentration is different. And so these things can be immediate, absolutely immediate. And so then the second part of the question is what they can do to help themselves.
Yeah.
So then it will be the homework that we give. So things like, it might be things like a cross crawl, it might be things like making sure they drink water, avoiding the wheat, looking for, in Tracy's case, let's swap the oats for the gluten-free oats. So we give people homework to do that's based on, what's come up for them.
And then the other piece of the question was to do with those people that have come on the training, how has it impacted their lives and made a difference?
You tell me.
I knew she was going to get to you. In fact, she
Changed my life.
Yeah.
Change your life. Change my life.
Changed my life. Massive.
For me, I would say oh my god, and then, but it's so obvious, isn't it? And then put me back in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And actually help me know I'm not going insane.
Yeah.
It's because you have these different symptoms, and if you're very body aware and body conscious, not body conscious in terms of, what does it look like, but body conscious in terms of, I know what is going on with my body, and if it's really subtle, it's like I know it. It's like the shade of pink is slightly different. It's just like, yeah, but that's bloody obvious to me.
Yeah.
And so all these things that I'm like, it's not right.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, and they're like, no, it is right. Look, everything comes back and it's right. For me, I was just like, now I know, and helps me understand, I think, the why. And even in terms of, that's from a personal point of view, but from an instructor, fitness, Pilates, massage point of view, I would say that you see changes and things begin to work, or it's just like, why is that muscle not switching on, and why are you having pain when you're trying to lift that leg off the floor, or why can't you, sit-ups, curl-ups, just making a C shape.
Yeah, right.
It's like every time we went to do anything like testing the abdominals, off. I couldn't even sit up. Because it's like every time they did the test, I'd be like over, flat, on my back.
And they're the things, aren't they, that when you're doing those tests, or like, I always come back to neck, because some people have got necks that are so life-affecting and they can't turn their head to drive. And then suddenly you just correct that neck and it's like, wow. That's foundation kinesiology. It's huge. It's life-changing.
That's letting people play with their children. Literally play, going outside, I can play with my kids, I can pick them up. Or it's actually, I can be in the room and not round around in my head because I'm worried about the pain. So I'm having connection with people, I can have memories with my family. I can go to that social event that I wouldn't be able to go to because of my anxiety, or because I'm in so much pain or so tired at the end of the day. Like, it's literally like the big stuff that we take for granted.
So the other thing I should tell you before we break into workshop is what is glorious about kinesiology, unlike something like acupuncture, which is glorious, but you know, it's a 7-year training pathway, and then it's going to take that long before you can start charging. Once you do a foundation kinesiology course, the actual training course is 5 weekends where you're learning, and then the last weekend is a consolidation day and then an assessment day. The assessment is you would be in a room like this with other people, working on someone you don't know, just doing what you've been training to do. So it's not like one-on-one with an assessor. The assessor is just watching everybody, and actually the assessor is assessing the teaching. And then you also have an open book, multiple choice exam, but you have your books. So you have as much time as you need to do it, and so it's a case of we're doing it so that you know where to get the answers. Yeah, it's not an exam, it's an open book assessment so that you know you can get the answers. So that's the assessment day, so it's 6 weekends in total. And after that, once you've got your, yes, I am proficient as a foundation kinesiologist, you can get insurance, you can join a governing body, and you can charge members of the public for foundation kinesiology. And people usually start around £25 to £30 an hour. So it's pretty good. But there is actually a career pathway, because not only can you build up your clinic, you can go on and do practitioner if you want to, but you can also, once you've done foundation, you can train as a fabulous foundation kinesiology teacher. So you don't need to have done practitioner to be a foundation kinesiology teacher, because they're kind of two separate beasts. So you can then, what happens is you resit your training, but doing kind of what these lovely ladies did, by actually you will do one of the topics in class, but you will video yourself doing it first and before you do it live in class, and you'll be given feedback and supported, so that by the time you come to do it live in class, you feel really, really confident. And so you're mentored every step of the way. We have monthly faculty meetings, so you are supported. Any student issues, and that's, you know, even after you come out as a teacher. And then the earning for that is, we recommend no more than 10 students, just so that you've got enough time. Most of the marking is done automatically online, because they do a lot of online stuff as foundation, as students. You're just marking case studies, but so on 10 students, you can, I think, you can be looking at earnings up to about £1,000 in a weekend. So there is a career path and there is a clinic path. And so you could even be doing your teacher training before you went on if you wanted to do practitioner. So it's entirely up to you. But yeah, there's lots of options now to be a kinesiologist and to actually make it a really viable offering. So we'll stop the video. Thank you, Zoisa. And then let's get you experiencing some kinesiology.